Welcome back to the Anthony Lee Crypto Channel. Today we're going to take a look at stats for November on Bitcoin. Here we have Bitcoin in the 1 month chart. We're going to look at monthly stats. What does Bitcoin typically do in the month of November? All right, so I went back and marked out all of Bitcoin's open and closes, highs and lows, dating all the way back to 2013. And as you can see here, Bitcoin has a 66.67%, so 2/3 of a chance of closing the month of November positively. When it does close positive, the average win rate, well, this is a little off. If you can see in the first year, Bitcoin closed 449% to the upside. That's way outside of the normal range. So we're going to go ahead and exclude that one to get a more accurate representation of what we could be looking like here. So if we delete those, the 2013 stats, the average win return for Bitcoin is just over 24%, with the average losing return at about 19%. So let's do that on our chart here and see what that would look like. If Bitcoin were to go up from current price action today being the last day of October, let's assume it closes somewhere around here. About 24% to the upside will bring you somewhere in the area of about 135K. And 19% to the downside is going to bring you in the area of 88K. So we're going to be looking for somewhere in that range, 88K to 135K. And I know that's a big window, but those are stats. Looking at the average low and high date, you can see that the average low is on the 10th of November, with the average high coming on the 16th of November. Now, these are a little skewed. If you can look at the columns for the low date here and the high date here, they're really either in the first week or last week of November. There's really no in between. That's why your averages are right here in the middle. So there's very few closes in the middle. Let's see, you got two closes in the two highs, which come in the middle of November, but for the most part, they're either in the first week or last week, whether it's the high or the low. Now, looking through these stats, all of the major highs, we have wick highs over here, which means that's how far it went up, and wick lows, how far it went down. Not necessarily closed, but we had a wick to the high or a wick to the low. All of the major wick highs, 61%, 77, 43, 42, all of those came on months where the low date was in the first week of November. So for the big returns every single time, the big returns to the upside start out with a downside move for Bitcoin. So if you're wanting a big November, we need to be looking for the low of Bitcoin to come within this first week of November. Every single time has been a 40+% move to the upside on Bitcoin. Now that is on a wick, not a closing basis. So wicks on up there, 40+% every single time. So if we want that, that's what we're looking for. Now to the downside, your average low, the average wick is 12.76, so not too bad of a move to the downside. But if we're looking for a closing positive with a big return, we need to see Bitcoin open up to the downside. I know that's not what a lot of you want to hear, but stats are stats. If we can tough it through 1 week to the downside and we find our low, of course, we won't know to the end of the month if that was actually the low. But from statistical perspective, if we're trending to the downside in the first week to the tune of about 10-12% or so, then we can safely assume, based upon history, which of course that doesn't mean future results, but based upon historical data, if we trend to the downside on a wick of about 10 to 12%, somewhere in this first week, we can assume that the low is probably in, and we'll go into greater detail later to try to figure out if that's the case. And if so, we can expect upside for the rest of the month to the tune of 40+%, based upon historical data. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and stay tuned for next week where we will be doing live trades and discussing more of Bitcoin and altcoin data. Now, if you have any requests, drop them down in the comments, and we will get to those next week.